I'm Tom Osman, and this is Whatever Comes Next, the podcast where I explore the world of underground and independent music making. And on today's episode, I am talking with two-thirds of instrumental rock group Stinking Lizaveta, Yanni Papadopoulos and Cheshire Agusta, who are two-thirds of the band alongside Alexi Papadopoulos, Yanni's brother. And I'm talking with Yanni and Cheshire today in part because Stinking Lizaveta have just reissued their first two albums, which are getting a vinyl edition for the first time on SRA Records. And alongside the two albums getting this first vinyl issue, the band has also put out a live album from 2023 and a collection of demos from 1994, which can be bought in various different configurations between the different releases. And this was cool. I was really looking forward to talking with the two of them. I think in general, talking to a band that have got 3 decades worth of experience is already going to be full of insight, but particularly given their heritage, the people they've worked with. So Stinking Lizaveta recorded a lot with Steve Albini, including the first album. And the second album was made partly from a recording session with one of my absolute heroes and icons, Steve Austin, from Today's the Day. So unsurprisingly, I was excited also to talk with them about their experiences of working with Albini and working with Steve Austin. And they have a whole wealth of other interesting experience of bands they've played with and been inspired by and had interactions with. So it was a fun chat. And Stinking Lizaveta is one of these bands that sort of has flown under the radar, but they've been basically going constantly since they started out in 1993, I think it is, when the band formed. And the most recent new material they put out is just from 2023, Anthems and Phantoms. And in my view, you can go through all of the catalog and you'll find great instrumental rock music, kind of alternative noise, avant-garde rock music all the way through. Everything is definitely well worth attention. And now for the first time, there's easier access to the first two albums, which up until this point that they were reissued, I think even if you wanted to check out Slaughterhouse, it wasn't available online. I think there were even maybe a couple of tracks you could find on YouTube. But it's very cool that these albums are getting put back into circulation and that they're getting a vinyl edition as well, which I know from talking with Cheshire and Yanni felt kind of important for them to be able to have vinyl issues of them. And there we are. We talk about the state of music today. We talk about changes in the music scene over the years and music business and trying to make something, carve some kind of space and manage to keep going, making underground independent music, which is what I like to explore on this podcast. And so that is what we do. And I will put all links into the description of where you can buy Hopelessness and Shame and Slaughterhouse from, and where you can follow the band as well. And if you would like to follow me, you can do so on all the social media that I'm on at Tom Osman Sounds. You can check out what I'm doing musically at tomosmansounds.com. And I think with that, oh yes, I'm going to play a song. I haven't decided which song I'm going to play, whether it's going to be from Hopelessness and Shame or Slaughterhouse, but you will find out in a second as I play a clip from that track, and I will play whichever track I have chosen at the end of the interview. But until then, all that is left for me to say is Yanni Papadopoulos and Cheshire Agusta from Stinking Lizaveta. Take it away.
You see us?
I see you. I hear you. Tom, nice to meet you.
Right. Hey, Tom.
Hello, Tom.
You look like you might be joining me from some kind of rehearsal space.
Yes.
Yeah, you think?
Let's see. Let's give you a tour.
Give you a tour. Let's see.
Aha.
Well, yeah, there's the 2 drum sets. This is where I teach, and this is where we practice.
Right.
Put the light on. There you go.
Here's me and my
Oh
amplifier.
my gosh. Can you see it?
Yes.
Oh no, it's Yanni. Yikes.
So Cheshire, is that your day job, teaching drums?
Yeah. Yes.
So playing instrumental, experimental, jazzy rock music doesn't pay the bills?
The band pays for itself, but it doesn't pay for us.
Okay.
So that's the level of our success in financial terms.
And what about for you, Yanni? What's your daily work outside of making music?
Well, I have two jobs. One of them is also as a guitar teacher, and the other job is as a house painter.
Ah, okay.
Tradition.
I'd rather be a full-time teacher. No, I'd rather be a full-time rock musician, but I'd rather be a full-time teacher. But the house painting pays the bills, so that's the one that really.
Yeah, that's good. So obviously we are partly here to talk about the reissues that are coming up of your first two albums, Hopelessness and Shame and Slaughterhouse, which are going to be coming out on SRA Records on the 7th of March. So you've carved out this space for yourself, making this unique instrumental rock music that you do together. And it's always been the three of you with this consistent lineup since, when was it that you formed? Around about 92, 93?
93.
93. So you've been putting out albums consistently, consistently high quality material all the way up to 2023 when you put out Anthems and Phantoms. Why was now the time to revisit your back catalogue?
Good question.
Well, I mean, a couple of things came together. First of all, Anthems and Phantoms is the first record we released on SRA. And so that's when we developed that relationship with Bruce Howes, he is SRA Records. And Bruce is known around town as sort of a cataloger of Philadelphia punk rock and underground records. And so one of the things that SRA is known for is re-releasing older things that are no longer in print from Philadelphia punk bands. And he's just kind of applying his same philosophy to us now and saying, well,
even though we're not defunct,
even though we're still dead, but so is a Flag of Democracy, so.
Right, well, yeah, Flag of Democracy is still a band.
So he's still, still putting, he likes reissuing stuff, and he's got a way of doing it where it fits his budget. And if he works with the band, he wants the band to have, their records available to people.
Yeah.
Now, other things have also happened that make it timely. One of them was Steve Albini's passing.
Yeah. I mean, these records came out in the 90s when there wasn't vinyl being produced.
Yeah.
It was all CDs, but they were recorded to 2-inch tape, by a guy who works in an analog environment, like assiduously, like religiously, right?
Yeah.
And so these albums always belonged on vinyl. It was a disappointment to us that they never got there. So it's like happy times for us.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Yeah, Steve Albini is kind of like he was one of the flag bearers for analog recordings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should see him cut tape.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen clips of it on YouTube. He was a master with that.
Totally awesome.
So you've got the two albums, and then also, as I understand it, you're going to be putting out the first demos that you did with Steve Albini as well, which will also be on vinyl. And also, I don't know if you actually released this before, but the live recording that you have from 2023, Live 2023, I think it's called. Is this actually the first time this is being released at all, or it came out before? It's
the first time it's being released. It's, I mean, to us, it just happened yesterday on our timeline,
Yeah.
And it was rather, it all came together kind of fortuitously. We didn't know that we were going to be videoed that night. Somebody just showed up and said, "Is it okay if I take some video of you guys?" And we said, "Oh, that's fine." And then they also just happened to be recording the performance as well. And I said, "Hey, look, we've got this guy who shot this good video, and we've got this recording, and let's mix it and let's get it together." And Bruce said, "Well, let's put out a live album. You guys haven't done that yet, have you?" And the good thing is we had just been on tour for a month at that point with Telekinetic Yeti on the West Coast. And so we were ready to play. Let's put it that way. We were well oiled at that point.
Seasoned, little salt, little pepper.
We just had to flip the switch. And I'm really happy to have a document that can live on the internet like that.
Mm.
You know, and that is well done. The camera work is really good on it, and the images are very watchable, and the sound is really good. Joe did a good job of mixing it all. So it's quite a feat. Like it's quite that it actually all came together. You don't have to go out and see us anymore.
Oh.
You don't have to play anymore. Kind of the way we would rather have it.
Well, I mean, but in a way, there's kind of like a nice symmetry to it that you're putting out these very early recordings, and then you've got this live document of basically the way that the band is today. So it's sort of linking the origins to where you are now.
Yes, it's all. I mean, we're really excited that all these things have come together, and we couldn't have seen it coming. Actually, no idea that 2 years ago we had no record label, and we were just wondering what we were going to do. And now we have 6 releases all at once. It's,
nuts. Yeah. See, look.
Uh-huh.
Now that's the demo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Now the demo came about because I had the master, the reels sitting around in my house. I had the master reel.
That's right.
Of this, and so Bruce said, let's get it off of the master reel and put it on vinyl. Now it was, I think it did have to be digitally mastered from the master reel. You know what I mean? There's one more process that it goes through before it becomes this. But other than that, it's exactly what was on the reel, the half inch. I think it was half inch tape. So it goes like to 2-inch tape to half-inch tape, and that's what Steve sends you away with in the old days. Was like a real half-inch tape, and then you go and do whatever you want with it. 20, 30 years later.
30 years later, if you can, first you have to bake it, and then you gotta, and then there's this one. This is the second album, Slaughterhouse.
Yeah. Is that, by the way, that cover, is that a bat?
It's a cat.
Oh, it's a cat.
So our bass player, Alexi, was rehabbing a house in West Philly and found this in the floorboards. And he's a photographer, so he was just like, oh, yeah, this is so cool, And this ended up being the record cover.
Yeah. I remember actually seeing the real cat.
The real cat, yeah, we all saw it.
Because he opened up the floor and there the cat was, poor thing. But,
yeah. Well, now it's been immortalized.
Yeah.
Well, he was already mummified, so.
Yeah, mummified and then immortalized. So, yeah, so have you got, well, I wanted to ask you actually, so about the vinyl, I understand that if you go to the SRA Records website, you can get everything all together. So you can get all 4 vinyl, or you can get Hopelessness and Shame with the demos. We can get Slaughterhouse with the live album, or you can just get the 2 albums individually. Can you also buy the demos and the live album individually, or they automatically come with the pack?
Oh,
we're no experts on this subject.
I don't know the answer to that question.
But I'm pretty sure you can buy whatever you want individually. That if you just contact SRA Records, you could.
That would make sense to me.
The a la carte system is at work there. So
it's usually welcome, actually, a la carte by businesses.
And so those reissues are going to be digital on Bandcamp and physically on vinyl. Is that the formats for everything?
I believe so. I mean, at this point, people don't really want CDs right now. They really want your vinyl, or they'll just go digital straight.
Yeah.
And then the other mediums don't really count for much right now.
Yeah, computers don't even come with slots for a CD player. They don't come with CD players anymore. So
yeah, I know that kind of, it annoys me. I've got I have some live Today is the Day CDs that I want to watch, and I don't have any ports for play them.
You're a fan of Today's the Day.
Oh, wow.
I was going to bring them up anyway, because they are basically one of my absolute favorite bands. Steve Austin is one of my favorite people in music, and I know that you have a couple of connections to them. And I think actually before you'd even done the recording with Steve Austin, you'd played with Today is the Day. In fact, was that before your first album? Is that right?
Yes.
Was it really?
Yes. Well, we played with Today's the Day. I think, okay, we were thrown onto a tour with Today's the Day and Zeni Geva.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it was so ridiculously awesome.
And it's funny
I can
because
imagine.
Zeni Geva is another band that Steve worked with.
Yeah.
And at that time, Blake Fleming was playing drums for Zeni Geva.
From Dazzling Killman.
Yes. Yes.
And eventually, didn't he do a stint with Mars Volta?
He was also the drummer.
That's right.
And he has just recently released a book on drums, like Fleming, if you keep up with him on social media. But nevertheless, we were thrown onto this tour, and it was a national tour, but it was a fast national tour. It was like 1 week from Philly to San Francisco, like, played like Kansas City in between, and
Yeah, right. We got out
so that's where we sort of developed a relationship with Steve and his band, and I just thought they were fantastic. I mean, it was like a dark opera that he was really ahead of his time. And lucky for us, we were touring later, a few years later, and
isn't he in Nashville?
It was in Nashville, yeah.
Yeah, we went. We ended up going back to his house, basically.
Yeah, and he invited us back to his house, and he said, "Let's plug in and let's do a recording at whatever midnight." And those were the tracks that became Slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope Steve's doing well. I mean, we're not that friendly that we chat or anything, but when Today's the Day comes to town, I'll certainly go out to see them.
Yeah. Yeah, I interviewed him last year because he's got this outlaw country album that he's got in the works. And so I think that's going to be coming out this year. And then also there's going to be a new Today's the Day album, a double album, I think. So I'm quite excited in anticipation.
He's really a genius.
Yeah, definitely. Always doing something different, something creative. Going back then a little bit, though. So you had this long, fruitful relationship with Steve Albini. You had all these early recordings that you did. And then I think later on as well, you started out when he still had his sort of home recording studio. And then you did Scream of the Iron Iconoclast once he was in Electric Audio in the mid-2000s. So what do you remember about like your first meetings with Steve Albini? How did you even end up recording with him in the first place?
We went to a show, Shellac show, right?
Actually, I didn't go. You went.
Oh, I went to the show.
Yeah, because
I had a tape. I had a demo tape.
I couldn't make it. I can't remember what the issue was.
Anyway, he gave me the marching orders. I was to deliver this tape.
The representative.
Yeah, we had a demo tape cassette at the time, and
it was a cassette, and it was just you and me on that. We didn't even have Alexi in the band yet.
Yeah, it was still just
him and me.
Ideas, at that point. And, I asked her. I said, "Look, if you get a chance, give this to Steve Albini. He's a friendly guy,
we had known the PJ Harvey stuff, and I was. She recorded with him, and really liked those drum sounds I was hearing going on her records. So I was interested too to see what he could do for drums, and so I wandered up to him, gave him the tape, and ran away.
Fortunately, it had our phone number on it. So.
And then if you call his number, it would say something like, the answering machine would say, "I don't care who you are. I don't care who your friends are." Everything after that was lost on me. I'm like, okay.
But, Steve Albini is one of those people that actually answers the phone.
This is true.
Yeah. And this was true even because
last year when I called him to get those quotes.
Yeah, last year I spoke to him on the phone.
He answers the freaking phone.
He just answered the phone, and
not like my doctor's office.
Yeah, it wasn't, I didn't have to leave a message. I didn't have to talk to a secretary. I didn't have to, speak to an intern. Just Steve Albini answers the phone.
Yeah, I never got the impression that Steve Albini would like big time anybody. It was always like very democratic for everyone.
That was not the way he rolled. No, he's.
And so, having had these various different recording sessions with him, do you have any sort of, funny memories of working with him? Any anecdotes from your time recording with him?
Well, I mean,
What did he say when I gave him the Albini pie? We had this thing in Philadelphia on the in the middle on the meridians, on the roadway meridians at stop signs. Like people will sell sweet potato pies about this big, and bean pies. They call bean pie. You can reach out your window and buy one and keep going. I haven't seen a lot of that lately, but that used to be a really big deal. And so I bought him a pie to bring. We were going to record with him, and I called it the Albini pie. That's actually more of a Cheshire anecdote than a Steve Albini.
That's still cool. That's an insight that I'm not going to get anywhere else. Steve Albini bought a special pie.
There was one song we were recording. It was called Cyclops.
Oh, right.
And we did it. We recorded it. This was in the Scream of the Iconoclast session. We did one version of it, and I said, "Well, how's that?" And he goes, "Well, it's not really like, going to make me shit my pants or anything, if that's what you're going for." And I said, "Well, that is what we're going for." Of course. He goes, "Well, why don't you try it again?" And then we did it again, and he was like, "Okay, I think you got it."
Smells it here.
I just like that. That it's good when you work with somebody and they can get into your, they can see. Like a producer is like a psychologist or he's got to be able to say the right things to you to get that performance out of you, or like a director, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if they can do that, because sometimes not every environment is like that, of course. But he knew enough to be able to say just the right thing to get that performance,
but would completely deny his role in the world as a producer.
He's like, I'm hands off,
If you don't know what you're doing, but when you go in there, your record's going to sound like you don't know what you're doing. Yeah. That's what he would say.
Yeah, he didn't want to impose his own view of how things should be on, because I think I remember an interview with him where he said that there was some early recording that he did. In fact, I think it might have been the Pixies' Surfer Rosa, where there were these little snippets that they have in between the tracks. And he said that those were kind of his idea. And then after the album came out, he felt bad because he felt like this is an album that people are going to know the Pixies by. And it's like, I kind of imposed some of this onto them. And so that was sort of a pivotal moment for him where he decided for himself, okay, I'm going to be more hands off. But like you say, if he knows the right thing to say, he can still tease out from the band.
Yeah, it's worthy. I mean, the other thing that was fun, he would tune my drums for me. I do know how to do it, but not as well as he. So, and how he would do from the floor tom to the high tom. Oh no, bass drum, floor tom, high tom. He would sing the La Marseillaise. That the boom 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 boom. Where we go next?
Ah, da, da, da.
Bum, 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 crack, bum, bum.
Flam, ba, ba. Yeah, right.
One of them was the kick drum.
Yeah, yeah. That was a good trick.
So I have no experience when it comes to setting up drums. How much is the tuning of drums something that can be a matter of preference versus like there's a right way and there's a wrong way?
It's preference. Also, there's an ear towards the room that you're playing in. There are sympathetic, sort of sympathetic tones in a room that if you play another thing, the room will pick up on it. There's sometimes when you want to cut against that, you don't want to swamp the room with one pitch or another, but you want the drums to sound good in that room, so you tune them for that room. But then there's mostly just like, you just wander in and set your shit up and play.
Yeah. So like how often do you have to tune your drums?
I just tune them when they start to sound too complicated.
Okay.
Yeah, when the overtones get like muddy.
Like there's too many vibrations going on. Like
you hear like
then you know it's time to tune.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want that. You want a nice clear ring.
Yeah.
At least that's what I want. See, that's a preference too, right? So in the 70s, people took the bottom heads off drums and stuck microphones up there because it was like their first experience with close micing anything.
Yeah.
And so they went crazy on it.
But it wasn't their first experience with sticking a microphone up there. Oh,
it was not here. He did not say this.
It's the 70s.
Yeah, that was the 70s. So, and that became a thing. And then like in the used stores, all you could get was these drums that had no bottom rims or heads, you know. But that sort of changed over time. People got different ideas about how to close mic things.
Yeah, it's funny how you go through these phases in music where things really become the fashion and almost like kind of accepted as just like, this is the way you do it, until someone comes along and goes, maybe we'll do it a different way, and people pick up on it.
Exactly. Like, remember Aaron Levinson, a housemate of ours who did a lot of recording basically on our second floor, decided that PZM microphones, those flat ones that really are capturing the room, was the way to go. And he recorded jazz records up there in basically one tiny little room on the second floor with just these room mics that were placed carefully, because he was tired of this idea of like all the close miking and running everything through 25 miles of cable.
Albini used PZMs.
Yes, he did, but he also used other
in his basement.
That's true, he did.
Up against the walls. Yeah,
that's right.
That was part of his sound. Was that, you know? I mean, one thing we learned from Steve is that you can definitely play live in the studio. That is a thing.
You don't have to go all Don Henley on your own ass.
Because not everything has to be Steely Dan, you know.
Yeah. And Steve Albini would probably say nothing should be Steely Dan.
But there are other people who might also agree with that statement.
And so, I mean, I see his philosophy as almost more like photography. Like he's trying to capture a band in their form. And that's not the only recording philosophy that there is, of course, you know. I mean, recording is always a sort of a compromise between worlds, you know, a compromise between the artificiality of the situation, you know, versus the reality of the situation, because you've got all this power to make it, you know, you could literally record one drum at a time.
People do that
if you wanted to, and string it all together.
One string at a time. People have done this. It's like boggles my mind. Like, why would you want to do music like that? Music is about like you and me. And
will it be better? Is sort of the question in the end. Like, is it any better? Is it any better to, you know, put everything through the metronomic sieve, or is it just better to just let it? What is rock music anyway? You know, like, is it? What captures the spirit of it more, you know, meticulousness or?
No, it really doesn't survive on meticulousness. Rock doesn't.
So he didn't care so much about like bleed and issues like that. They just weren't very important, you know.
Yeah, it was more getting an authentic take that had the energy of the band, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that's.
Which is you know, that's a certain way of documenting things.
Yeah.
We'd use the word snapshot, you know.
Yeah. And moving from one iconic figure of the underground to another, you've got James-Plotkin remastering the first album, who I guess I'm most familiar with him from Can It, the complete mind-shattering band that I listen to from time to time when I'm feeling that I have enough fortitude. I'm just like, okay, I'm ready for another Can It evening. And I think he was involved with one of your previous records. I forget if he produced or he mastered maybe another one of your records. So
we've used him quite a bit for mastering, and his ear is really great. I think we've done at least 4 records.
Okay.
Doing the mastering. So at this point, I wouldn't use anyone else. You know, that's just how it's. He's our go-to guy for, you know.
And did you know him before? Like, were you drawn to him from his work as a musician or from other records that he'd mastered?
I think I think we were introduced to him as someone that can really do a good mastering job more. But you know, I've heard some stories that I'm not going to share them, but he's a colorful character.
I believe, yeah. I think, yeah, if you're going to be in Can It, you have to be a character for sure.
we did some other shows with some members of we always call them Kanates over here. I don't know why.
They're one of these bands. I have no idea. I've just basically, for now, I've picked one way of pronunciation. I'll probably change it after this interview.
Well, we've played with some other members of them, but never with James. So we've never shared the stage with him. But part of the reason that we work with him is he's local.
Right. Okay.
So that, that makes things easier.
Yeah. And going from that onto Slaughterhouse, which we touched on before. So at that point, you'd had various recording sessions that you'd done with Steve Albini. So I'm interested to know if you remember, was there anything that stood out as being particularly working with Steve Austin?
Oh yeah, Steve wants to put his signature on your music. He wants to enhance it, with his madness. And I think honestly, that's what we were looking for at that point. Someone that would
push us around a little bit.
Put their little their sparkle on things. Because I remember when we came back to Steve for or Albini, that is, for Iconoclast, I think it had been 13 years in between, something like that. And he kind of asked, well, where have you been? Or what have you, or
what trouble have you got yourself into since then?
And honestly, we said, well, first of all, we were broke. And, so when people said, we'll record you for free, we just said, okay, sounds great. And that's which isn't always the best decision. But in the case of Steve Austin, was a great decision because that was more of a collaboration. That was like a late night collaboration with him. He had an idea. His equipment was new, and he just wanted to record anything. Like, let's do you guys.
So that part of the album, because I understand that Slaughterhouse was partly from sessions with him, and then you did further sessions afterwards. Was that literally just like one day that you worked with him, or it was a longer period?
No, it was one night.
One night.
Yeah, it was one night. But so how much can you get done in one night? 3 or 4 songs.
We did. Yeah.
So we had to fill it out with some recordings. We went to Annapolis, Maryland, with a guy that I knew, and just said, "Hey, can we do some recordings with you?" And this studio called LSP Studios, and he did a good job, But there's a nice contrast between the styles, the recording styles. But unfortunately, Les was his name. Doesn't quite have he's not as well known as these other characters, but he's a great guy too.
And now that you've got the 2 albums in these remastered forms, how does it feel for you now that you're looking back on this music that you made around about 30 years ago? What's it like to have that documented in this new form?
Oh, I don't know yet because I haven't listened to them on a record player. But the process of getting them done brought up we listened to a lot of old, tracks and stuff. And I'll just sit myself down, and at this point, I just fall over. I love this music so much. I mean, sometimes right after we make a record, I'm like death, I can't stand to listen to myself, because all the intentions are still in your head of being in the room and what you meant to do and didn't do, or what you did do but you didn't mean to do. And then time passes, you forget all that, and you just hear what's there. And I'm like, damn, every one of these songs takes me on a journey still to this day. That's what I want for my listeners. I want them to take the music and have it for themselves, make what they want of it. Notice we don't have anybody hollering over our music, telling you what to think or do or feel.
Yeah, there's a lot of interpretation for the listener. And what about for you, Yanni?
Oh, I just think we're weird.
I think that's fundamentally why I like you. Generally, everything that I like is weird.
Who are these weird people? That's what I hear.
I know, Devil Truck, Yanni, Devil Truck.
In many ways, our music has become more rock style oriented over the years.
Yes. Kind of frustrating, actually.
But that's what I am, is a rock musician.
Mm.
You know, that's actually what I'm, and I just want to give people what I'm.
He wants to say the word riff.
Good
right?
at.
He wants to say riff, right?
No, I want the challenge. The challenge for me is to actually use my talent on the record. You know, like I want people to you know, it's like, well, I can play the guitar. Let me, you know,
you have something to prove.
No, just I have something.
Probably have older you.
It's not that I have something to prove. It's I have something to give. You know, and that is rock guitar. You know, that's my genre. You know, and I think that over the years that has become more accepted, just through time, the passage of time. You know, like it used to be, if you told someone you were a rock musician, like, you know, people would ask you,
"You're a bum.
What kind of music do you play?" They expect you to say jazz or you know,
something respectable.
Yeah, something and you say, "Well, I am a rock musician. That's my vocabulary is rock music." You know, and
people do denigrate rock, but you know, like 50,000 people. I'm going to walk out my front door and I'm going to see like 15 people, and I could hold a gun to their head and they wouldn't be able to rock. So you tell me who's the bum.
Well, on the topic of styles, and there's something that I want to ask you about some of your music. So it seems like from very early on, you're very comfortable with playing with time signatures. So, for example, on Slaughterhouse, I was thinking of Bullet Park in particular, because when I'm listening to bands and I can hear like, oh, okay, there's an interesting time signature, the first thing I tend to try and do is go like, right, what is this? So I listen to that, I'm thinking like, okay, it seems like there's like a 3-4-4-4 thing. It's like you're doing 7/8, but then sometimes you add the extra note. And I'm thinking, where does that impulse come from? Because to me, that seems like more of a jazz impulse rather than a rock impulse. And you do seem to have that peppered through your records. So yeah, where does this impulse come from?
It actually comes more from folk music. From like ethnic influences.
Yeah, like Dumbek music, like Greek patterns.
Interesting.
They're often in 7/8 or 5.
Arabic,
Arabic,
or they have different names for different rhythms.
Calamatiano
is the 7/8. Is the 7/8?
No, that's a 10. Calamatiano is 10.
Is it 10?
I think so.
I don't know all the names.
I forget how to do it.
But I used to play guitar for a belly dancing class in the locally here, and that's kind of like where but you know, it also comes from progressive rock, you know,
and math rock. You know, like the stuff that came out of Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah.
You know,
so
Confessor.
You take the progressive rock, you take the math rock, you take the the folk music, and the odd time signature is, it just rolls a different way. You don't want everything to just like,
not quite as German as like, some things are.
That's a very interesting insight. Well, then I want to ask you then very specifically, from your most recent record, the track Shock, I was listening to this repeatedly and I was like, I cannot figure this out. I feel like you're playing there are some interplaying rhythms going on. Also, like, watching the video of that live album that we talked about, when I watch the performance and I see your drumming, I'm like, you're doing something that seems to be within a different cycle than what the guitars and the bass are doing. So what is it that you're doing? Like, if someone wanted to cover that song.
Good luck. No.
And how conscious is that? Like, are you specifically thinking to yourself, right, this is this in this signature, or it's like you've learned how to do certain patterns and you're sort of playing them automatically?
No, I'm playing to the music, and I'm not trying to do I'm not trying to do something that's out of sync with them. We have done stuff like that before. Six Fangs is I'm playing in 4 and they're playing in I'm playing in 4 and they're playing in 3 type of a thing in the beginning. So we have done those things deliberately. Rock is not one of those things. It's just really slippery.
Yes. Slippery seems like a good word for it.
Yeah.
And if you slip off, it's hard to get back on.
Oh my God, no. I can create a brilliant train wreck.
Do you have any horror stories of that sort when you've been playing live and things have unraveled?
In Wuppertal, I think I was really tired and I stopped in the middle of a song. Yes, I've created train wrecks in front of thousands of people, and I've lived to tell the tale. And honestly, I'm still just as good a drummer as I was before. So better because I practiced, right? So
when you go on tour
live music
and you're playing the songs every night, sometimes in the middle of a song you can forget what night it is. You know, when you're like, am I doing this now or is this yesterday? Or you know, like so there are times where you know, you can just sort of lose the train. Unfortunately,
yeah,
we're not perfect. Yeah, and we're not perfect on this live record either. Believe me.
But you know, in terms of music, kind of like going back to what we talked about with Steve Albini, like perfection as such isn't necessarily something that you actually want to achieve.
No, there's a way of playing that clearly does not make the case for the song.
That's a very good way to put it. Yeah.
And then there's ways of playing that make the case and have the energy that is needed to convey the gesture.
Yep.
And you know, we're always going for that, of course. You know.
Now, you happen to bring up Wuppertal, which is interesting for me because I used to live in Dusseldorf, which is just down the road.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the fact that you do have all these dates coming up that you're going to be touring around Europe with. And before I lived in Dusseldorf, I lived in Prague for 5 years. So I know the Czech Republic a little bit as well. And I saw like you're going over to play in Brno in the east, which is really cool. And I was thinking, like, I know from like reading history of Swans, for example, and I talked with John Wright from No Means No a couple of years ago about their time touring around in Eastern Europe. So I'm wondering, like, where does your history with Europe come from? And, you know, of these places that you're going to be playing, are quite a lot of these familiar to you from previous tours?
Yeah. Except Poland. We've only played in Wrocław in Poland. So we're going to be playing in Warsaw this time. There's a couple other spots on the schedule that we haven't never been to before. Mostly it's places that we've been to.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up Prague because I spent a couple months in Prague in the 90s. And my brother and I were actually there one summer. And there's a band called Dunaj that we really like from that period.
DUNAJ.
Like,
you gotta look them up.
DUAJ.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes in my mind, you know, what I'm going for in that's also a place where some of the odd time signature influence comes from.
Yeah.
Is from this band called Dunaj from from
I
Prague.
will definitely check them out. That's cool.
Unbelievable. Yeah, one of my favorite bands.
But we had the good fortune of being on a German record label for one record.
Exile on Mainstream.
Exile on Mainstream, and working with Andreas Kohl. And so we developed a lot of good contacts in Germany and East, you know, the old East, and we have some very good friends there. And, you know, so we've been there, a bunch. Before that, we were on a British record label,
London.
Yeah, so we
Monastery.
toured the UK quite a bit before that. So we've kind of gone through these periods where we toured the States exclusively for almost 13 years. And people would say, you guys should go over to Europe, you know, and we'd say we'd love
It's hard to find someone
like,
to
do you know anyone?
Yeah.
You know, and it's, you know, I mean, at that time it was like if you didn't play pop punk, no one was interested in what you were doing. Like that was literally what the world was like at that point. Like, and people forget that that's like what
how much of a thing this was for a while.
Yeah, yeah. And
They're all just embarrassed.
and then we started doing. Oh, and then thank God, Steve invited us to do All Tomorrow's Parties.
That's what 2004, right?
Yeah,
that was our big entry.
Three, I think.
Oh, was it 3? Because that's where we met Kim from Monitoring Records, and she's like, "I want to put you out," which is like awesome. It's what's supposed to happen at these.
So she was living in London, and then we started doing the UK, and we made a lot of great friends in the UK, and that was an exciting period. And then people would say, "Oh, so you guys are touring in Europe?" And I said, "Yeah, we're touring in the UK." And they said, "Oh, but that's not Europe." Oh, so we still haven't made it to Europe yet, And then finally, we were playing one night with was it The Hidden Hand?
Oh yeah.
I'm actually kind of old friends with Scott Weinrich, Wino,
Yeah.
And I said, "Come on, man, we just need some gigs in Europe." And he said, "Okay, you guys can come with us on a tour in Europe." And that's when he sort of introduced us to that family, to Andreas.
Yeah.
And, it's when we started to get to know those guys. And then COVID happened.
What?
Yeah. I mean,
the black hole that we all got sucked into.
Yeah.
And then, so now things are just kind of starting over again now. Now we still, we're just kind of getting things moving again as the way I see it. And hopefully, nothing like that will happen again, but it's taken longer to recover, than people think.
Didn't anyone expect
it? In terms of live music and people wanting to leave their house, and,
Yeah, well, I mean, to that point, and I'm kind of curious, for a band like yourselves, where you've been going for this long and you've seen different trends come, some go and some continue. You've lived through the dawn of the digital age and streaming services and all of this, and you've seen different things change. I talk to a lot of people who are kind of operating an independent underground level, and I get the sense for some people that they say, like, at their level, it doesn't actually really make any difference. It's like the record labels used to rule things and we're sort of like flying under the radar, and now streaming services are ruling everything and we're still flying under the radar. So do you feel like for yourselves that, aside from like COVID, has the landscape significantly changed for you, or if you just feel like you've sort of been plugging away on your level through everything else changing all around you?
I think the latter. Yes.
We've just been plugging away.
We've been on a steady course, and it has grown, not at the speed that anyone would want, let's say, but there's significant growth there.
Yeah.
But it's always underground, and that's fine. Like we're not competing with the Foo Fighters, we're not like we're not competing with Billy Cyrus's daughter, you know what I mean? We're like, it's a different world. It's fine, because there are audiences that are we just play for the people that come. Now everyone wants to play to more people. Everyone wants more exposure. Nobody wants to play dud shows where like there's the bands outnumber the audience.
Yeah, nobody likes that. You have to do it on occasion. It doesn't matter who you are.
You got to get through. Yeah, like it's it's a part of the process.
And how would sorry, what were we
I
going
was
to say?
just going to say some of the trends, like the social media has become less useful for advertising. So we found ourselves, we were advertising that Johnny Brenda's show a couple months ago, right? And you hired Ren to put up posters. Like, this was my idea after we came back from the Telekinetic Yeti tour in 22. Nobody's getting through on social media anymore. So let's all get together and hire a whole bunch of people who will put up our posters for us for wherever we're going. We'll have a national network of posters. But Yanni carried through on this for one of our shows and hired a local kid to go and put. So it feels like the 90s again. I'm saying we used to run around West Philly with our staple gun, putting stuff on poles. And now here we are back and doing that again,
And that's cool. That's cool to hear, because I do and I ask a lot of people about this, about the impact of social media and about how useful it is, because it does sort of feel to me like, oh, we're in this time now where you need to use it to some capacity. But then I wonder, like, how much is it really useful? And I do get that sense with certain people talking to me that, like with Facebook, for example, you might post something and you have all these followers, but they don't even necessarily see it because there's some kind of structure that's in the background that's at play there. So that's really cool to hear that you've got some kind of like grassroots action that you can still take, that actually you get like a tangible result from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing you have the power to do is play shows.
Yeah.
Show and play the shows, and you know, that's what's within your power. And that is until they take that away from you, you know, or circumstances take that away from you, you know, you do have at least you still have that, you know, and if you're you know, if you play and people like it, they will tell someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll get asked back, basically. That's the thing. You get asked back, doing something right.
Indeed. And there's something else that I do like to ask people connected to live shows. So how important is the merch table to you and the band?
When we're on tour, it's hugely important. I mean, that's the money.
Yeah.
We have to have that. But say more about that. What do you mean important? Like,
well, I guess, you know, like going back to the very beginning of the interview where I was asking you about making a living from the band, and you said that the band sustains itself. So like during that COVID period where it wasn't possible to tour, were you still at a stage where, like, you know, you'd be selling records online that would generate some kind of money? Or is it more you really need to be playing live and to be selling at the shows to really get something back?
You really need to be playing live.
Playing live. Yeah.
To get something out of it. Yeah.
I mean, but you know, also we don't focus on hyping or connecting through social media to hype our stuff. Like,
no, we do.
Not really like the way these kids do.
I mean,
there are levels.
There are levels, yeah. And
we have Instagram, we have Facebook.
We have those things, but we don't use them the way that the young people do.
Wow.
And so what I really was addressing was like, you know, in 2020 when we're not gigging, well, we were gigging and rehearsing, but we weren't touring. We also weren't necessarily focusing on getting sales through online sources. You know, it's not like we were doing work on that every day. So,
I mean, we are not internet content creators.
Yeah.
But, you know, these YouTube videos, like my kids saw one and they said, "Oh my God, you're a YouTuber."
Yeah, right.
You know,
now he gets props.
I'm a YouTuber. So I am creating social media content.
Of course. It's almost unavoidable, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have, you know, a channel where I get on in the morning and say, "Hey, everybody, it's Yanni. Let's learn a riff." Hey. Now, people have said I should, but on the other hand, it's like, I don't, you know, I've got to live my life too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I was born in 1960. I got one foot on one side of the digital divide and another foot on this side of it. And I know how to use the stuff, but I'm not enamored of, you know, I don't have a Facebook account. If anybody came to my door and talked to me the way they talk to each other on Facebook, the violence would be the result. I'm sorry, everybody. They would get a punch in the face. I'm not having it, right?
I think that's fair.
I don't be on there.
Fair.
I don't want to feel like that. I don't want other people to feel like that on my account, period. You know, that's kind of how I roll with that stuff. I just can't anymore.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah. And also as well, you know, to Yanni's point about being a content creator, yes, I suppose by definition, the fact that I make these videos and they go on YouTube, I am a YouTube content creator.
Aren't we all?
It's not how I'm going to define myself, but I suppose someone else might.
Oh my God, you know what Tom said? Oh my God.
Hey,
wait, let me
people need content.
Content.
Indeed. Yanni, Cheshire, it was great talking to you. I'm going to let you two go away. Yeah, it was really cool to get your insights. It was cool to talk about the records. I'm really excited for them to be able to come out and actually get their proper place on vinyl. I think it's really cool. Like, they look great. And yeah.
You know, the runs are almost 3/4 paid for by already with pre-sales.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool. Yeah. And then when you go on the road in May, you get a chance just to sell the last ones that you have left when you're out there in Czech Republic and Poland and Slovakia and Germany and Austria. Yeah, and if, I do need to go back and visit some friends in Prague and in Germany. So if I'm clever about it and I can time it to coincide with when you guys are playing, then it would be awesome to get to see you live. But yeah, either way, I hope you have some great shows and I hope you have a great reception back in Europe.
Well, thank you, sir. It was great to meet you.
Good to meet you. Give us a toot if you...
I hope we do see you out in the real world at some point.
Mm-hmm.
That would be very, very cool.
Right on.
Let's see if the universe makes it happen.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Hey.
Thanks a lot, both.